I'll show you now how to use Experta AI Copilot to create various policies, procedures, plans and other documents for various cybersecurity frameworks, but also for some ISO standards, and also why this kind of specialized compliance tool is actually better for that purpose than some generic chatbots like ChatGPT or Claude, especially if you are working as a compliance professional. So in this video today, I'll show you some use cases, so in which situations you might need to generate various documents, and then I'll share the screen and I'll show you how you can use Experta to generate these documents very quickly, and then I'll go through some various dilemmas, but also frequently asked questions about this generation of documents when using AI tools. Okay, let's see first some use cases, so basically situations when you would need to create certain documents. So first of all, if you have some kind of an initial implementation project or compliance project, and then you have to create various documents like access control policy or a business continuity plan, or perhaps a risk assessment methodology. Or you might be in a situation where you already are fully compliant with a particular standard or regulation, and then you have to maintain the compliance with this particular framework. And then you have to regularly monitor and measure your system. Then you have to perform internal audits. You have to do the management review. You have to do various reporting towards the management. And again, for all of these things, you will need documents. Or another use case might be that you are, for example, a CISO in a company and that you want to improve a particular part of your security program, let's say your risk management. And then you want to focus on that specific area in your company and then create documents related to risk management. Or you might need actually to prepare for a certification audit or maybe an audit from a government body, and then you want just to, let's say, fill some gaps on the documents that are missing for this kind of an audit. Okay, let's see now how Experta's library of documents can actually help with all of these use cases. So here you can see this Write Documents module from Advisera's Experta AI Copilot. And basically this module does three things. So first of all, it offers you a library of templates. And then for the template that you select, it offers you to personalize this template through a wizard. And then the third thing, you can download this document to your disk and then use it in whichever way you want. And I'll show you now all of these three things. So first of all, you can select a standard or a framework for which you need your template. You see these three frameworks here, but later on I'll explain also which other frameworks we will cover in this module. So I'll go for ISO 27001, the cybersecurity standard, and I'll select English as a language and then move on next. And then what you will see here is a list of folders within this standard. And basically these folders show you what kind of steps does Experta suggest you for the implementation. So if you want to implement the whole standard, then you should start with the document management, then preparations for the project and so on. And the last one will be about corrective actions. But you don't have to go for all of these documents. Let's say that you're interested only in some particular document, that you want only that document to download. In this case, you simply find a folder to use this document. For example, you want something from the internal audit. You will see that there are several documents here. Or you can actually search for this document by name. Let's say that you're interested in incident documents. So let's see here under Annex A. There are several documents here. Yeah, incident documents are highlighted here. So incident management procedure and incident log. So these two documents are found like this through search. Or I can actually search this through a clause. Let's say that I'm interested in a clause 4.3. This will show the ISMS scope document. Okay. So anyway, let me explain you what happens when you open this folder. You see, of course, a list of documents. In some folders, there is only one document. In some folders, there are several of them. It shows whether a document is mandatory or not, according to the standard. And also it shows the reference to a particular clause of the standard. And let's say that I want to download this ISMS scope document. Then you simply mark it and click next. And then the system will actually show me the preview of this document, where I can see the first half of this document or so. This is not going to be the whole document, only some part of it. Why? Because when you actually click next, then you will spend one document credit for that purpose. In other words, in your subscription, you actually have a certain number of credits that you can use for documents. and when you want to use this document, it will spend 1 credit. So the point here is that you can actually preview the document before you spend this credit. So let's say that I do want this document, and then you can actually see that I've went the step further, and now I have entered into this document wizard mode. So this document wizard is basically used to actually customize these documents for the particular circumstances in your company. And just to let you know, you do not have to go through this wizard. If you don't like this, you can simply download the document right now. So if I clicked on this button here, I would be able to download the document now, but I don't want to download it. I want to use this wizard first. So basically the first question in the wizard is how do I want to label this particular document. So basically the question is, what is the confidentiality level of this document? And then there comes a suggestion on why this is necessary and how you can actually implement this. So use your existing classification system to label the documents. If a system does not exist, this line may be deleted. For example, use a label internal use, and then it says you entered previously confidential. So basically the system remembers anything that I entered previously, so that I can speed the answering up. So if I want to use this answer, I simply click this, and there we go, confidential. Okay, who is the owner of this document? Typically this would be the main person in charge of managing internal or compliance processes. Office manager compliance. Let's say that I want to answer this as office manager. Okay, and then comes the next question. What is the job title of the person to approve this document? And then a suggestion, this could be a person with authority to sign the documents and so on. You entered previously CEO. I simply want to use this answer, or actually let me use something else. I don't want to use this one. I simply want to enter, let's say, CISO. Okay, so, and then I go further. What is the name of the person to approve these documents? Let's say this is John Doe. And the last question, I think, and by the way, here you can see the counter, how many questions you will receive. And yeah, it says you've completed the wizard and now you can download the document. And then I click download, and you will see that here I have this document now available for download. And when I open the document, it looks like this. So it's in a Word format. It inserted automatically the company name, which I inserted previously. It also inserted the logo of this company, which I also uploaded previously into Experta. And then it inserted automatically the information that I entered through the wizard. So if you remember, I entered this name as approver. I also entered the confidentiality level. It then inserted the company name here in the header and also this confidentiality level. And let's see further some things that it also inserted. Okay, the company name. Let's see some other information if it included. Yeah, it included this office manager as a owner of these documents and so on. And then on top of this, now you actually have the ability to customize or personalize these documents further. So for example, users of this document are members of the company's management, members of the project team implementing the SMS, and then job titles. You see that there are these square brackets. And basically, whenever you see a square brackets, then you actually have to insert certain information there. So job titles of employees to access the ISMS scope document. And then you also have this here. You have this comment, which actually helps you how to fill this further out. So you could have, let's say, security department, IT department, and so on. You can delete this comment if you don't need it anymore. And then you can simply insert here whatever you see as appropriate. Let's say IT department and security department. And then you proceed further with this document, and then you simply fill out the rest of the information. For example, departments, you have the, let's say, suggestions here on what kind of departments could be included in the scope and so on. So basically then you finish the customization of this document on your local disk, save the document, and then you can use it whichever way you want. Okay, let's see now some most common dilemmas and frequently asked questions. So the first one is, how does this module write documents actually work? So first of all, we created these templates, and we created them manually. We did not use an AI tool to create these documents, and for each of the standards we created several templates so that you can actually implement the whole standard or comply with the whole regulation with our documentation templates. And if you follow Advisera from before, then you know that we also have these documentation toolkits. Well, these templates that you're seeing now in Experta are exactly the same documents as in these toolkits. And when we have built these documents, we made sure that we cover each and every requirement from the standard or from a regulation. And you can see here, for example, this reference to this clause 4.3, which is relevant for the ISMS scope. So we have built these documents to make sure that they are fully compliant, that we integrate all the best practices for managing the particular standard or compliance with a particular regulation. And on top of this, we inserted these comments here on how to actually adapt these documents for the particular circumstances in a company. In other words, we enabled the companies to enter their specific information about technology, about their people, about their processes, so that they can actually adapt these documents for their specific circumstances. And then we have uploaded all of these documents into Experta. So here you can also see documents in other languages, for example. And once you enter this document wizard, the wizard actually understands these comments in these templates and basically starts asking you questions based on these comments. So this is exactly how Experta understands what kind of customization is needed, and this is how this conversation with the AI starts. Okay, next common question is, are these documents actually created by AI? No, actually, the templates themselves, the whole documents were created by top Advisera's experts. And then the only thing that AI actually does, it starts a conversation with you regarding these questions that you can see here in these comments, and asks you some of these questions. And then once you answer these questions, there is a software in the background which integrates these answers into the document. And then this is how you actually get this document downloaded. So the role of the AI here is only this conversational part, but not actually building the content itself. Next question is, which frameworks or standards are covered by Experta? Currently, we are covering ISO 27001, the leading cybersecurity standard, DORA. This is the cybersecurity regulation for financial entities in Europe, and NIS2 is a cybersecurity regulation for critical infrastructure companies in Europe. We are planning to add very soon documents for ISO 42001. This is the AI governance standard. Also for ISO 14001, this is environmental management standard, ISO 9001, and so on. And for most of these frameworks, we will add several languages. So as you've seen already, for 27001, we have these 4 languages. For NIS2, we have the most because NIS2 actually specifies that each country in Europe needs to publish their own local cybersecurity law based on NIS2. And then we have not only to translate these documents into a local language, we also have to adapt these local toolkits for a particular country. So as you can see here, for example, there is a German language of the toolkit adapted for Austria, but then there is also a French version for Belgium and a Dutch version for Belgium, since both of these languages are main languages in Belgium. Further, how does Experta decide actually which documents are needed for a particular framework? Actually, Experta does not decide itself which documents are mandatory or not. This is determined by Advisera's experts. So for example, here I selected this NIS2 documentation toolkit for Malta. It's in English. And here you can see that this IT security policy is mandatory, and the references here are this NIS2 order. So this is Malta's local cybersecurity law, where basically this Article 19 says that this kind of a policy would be needed because of these points here. However, for this clear desk and clear screen policy, it also references to the order. But when you read actually these articles in the order, it's clear that this kind of clear desk and clear screen policy is not needed. However, we in Advisera thought that this kind of a document might be helpful to comply with this Article 19. So in other words, these decisions on what is mandatory or not are not made by AI. This is something that was made by human experts. And then important question, why is Experta better than, let's say, ChatGPT or Claude or any similar generic chatbot? Well, these documents are better because they are built by human experts. Because when AI builds a document automatically, it then picks up all the potential knowledge on the internet, and it cannot really distinguish which of this information on the internet is good or bad. Whereas when Advisera's experts are building these documents, then they actually build their expertise into these documents and make sure that every requirement is covered, and also that these documents are not too detailed or that something that is important is not missing. And if you ever have gone through a certification or through some kind of an audit, you will know that whenever there is something missing from the documentation, then it actually has big consequences. So this is not something that you would want to play around with. And then also one important question, how does Experta handle privacy and security? So any information, any data that you enter into Experta is first of all protected through a row level security. and also is encrypted at rest and also in transit. In other words, all this information is available only to you. No other users will be able to see this information. And second, even more importantly, anything that you enter into Experta is never used for training the AI. So your data is not going to be available to AI, so that AI companies cannot actually train their AI models based on your specific company data. Okay, and how much does Experta cost, and can you use this document generation for free? So let me show you how this pricing actually works, and this is here under plans and pricing. And here you will see that there are three plans. The first one is this free plan, and it's always free. It's not like it expires or anything. The second one is this growth plan, which costs $45 per month, and it actually enables you to access one full document per month. And then there is this business plan, which enables you to actually access 3 documents per month. Now, if you go for annual, then you will see this is $450. It enables you to 12 documents, or $1,000. It enables you to access 40 documents. Now, if you sign up for this free plan, you will still be able to access all of these documents from this library. However, when you download the documents, you will actually be able to see only roughly a half of it. So you will be able to access this demo version of the document, not the full version of the document. And also one question: as a consultant, can you use this Experta for several of your clients? Yes, it's very easy actually to use this Experta as a consultant with several clients. So as you can see here, this tag shows a particular company. Now I can actually delete this one and simply go for another company. Let's say a new company, and you enter whatever the company name you want. So let's say my client company, whatever you want, any name. You can actually upload their own logo, and basically this is where this logo is uploaded, and that's the logo that you've seen in the document that I've shown you. And then you click create, and then you see here, this is my client company. So whenever I create the document with this other company, then this company name will be shown. If I want to go back to the first one, it's very easy. I simply click here, I go back to this one, and I'm back here. So very easy to switch companies. And by the way, it's very important to mention that if you remember, as I've shown you, Experta actually remembers the answers you've given for a particular questions. It actually remembers these questions separately for each company. So none of these questions will be mixed. So you will always have, let's say, a clean slate when it comes to a separate company. Okay, I hope this was helpful. And as you can see, Experta was made to create these documents, I would say, in a quick but also in a very reliable way. And it's especially made for compliance professionals. So this kind of tool is really not meant to be used by some general public. It's only used for people who really do compliance for a living. And let me know in the comments below if you have any questions about Experta, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And to start using Experta, click the link in the description below, and you'll be able to open this free account. And if you want to use these full documents, then you can also upgrade and actually start paying for Experta. And see also my next video, which shows a detailed overview of all the main features in Experta. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and you can also subscribe to my YouTube channel not to miss any of my new videos, and I publish videos about cybersecurity governance and AI governance every week. Thanks for watching.